Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Friday night live stream. So it's Friday and the market is a little bit of a pullback, we could say. So let's do something fun, which is to dump on Gary. And there was this great interview over on CNBC, and it had former SEC Commissioner Gary Gensler. Now, look, I'm not one to pile on, but Gary really did put us through the ringer, and he was responsible for a lot of problems. Now, to be fair with Gary, he was the tying vote for the Bitcoin ETF. Without Gary coming in and saying, look, we're a 2-2 split, I'm going to say that Bitcoin ETF is going to go through. If it wasn't for that, we would be, I think, in a worse position than what we are now. However, Bitcoin is inevitable. It just takes a little bit more time. However, everything else past that is pretty much Gary's fault. So I'm going to have you take a listen to this. It's about a minute or so. It's the highlight reel of Gary getting called out, which I have to tell you is pretty fun just to watch. So without further ado, take a listen to this. I love Gary being put on the hot seat, which he should have been a lot more often. But here we go.
They are reversing a lot of what you did. And how are you feeling about what they're doing now?
So I'm very proud of what we accomplished.
And the crypto community is ecstatic not to have you there anymore and to have him there. Looking back on it, I mean, do you think that was the right call?
Yes, I think.
Because look, now we have this like burgeoning industry and there's so much more innovation and leadership in the US.
And a lot more capital coming into it.
There may be more capital in terms of the interest in the public. The public is interested. I get that. But for investors.
You think this is dangerous, what they're doing?
Put aside Bitcoin, but most of the other tokens are not tied to any fundamentals. Like Warren Buffett would say, what are the goods? What are the revenues? What are they selling? And so forth.
First of all, I love that clip. I really do. And I like the very first part where the host pretty much asked him, was like, everybody's ecstatic that you're gone. Pretty much saying that, you've failed every single person that you were trying to protect. You know that, right? And you did a great job, except for, FTX and Voyager and Celsius and a whole host of different other things. But, you did a really good job as far as like Gemini staking and keeping that out of the public view. And the very last part I will say before I get off of this soapbox, which is when he said at the very end, where he said, well, taking out Bitcoin, let's talk about altcoins. What are the fundamentals? What are they into? See, that's not Gary's job. Gary's job isn't to say, you know what, you should invest in this or not into this. Gary's job is to protect investors. And it's up to the investors to say, like, this has real world utility. This actually does something. This is actually a good buy for me. When Gary talked about that and said that this is what Warren Buffett thinks, and I think the same way, Gary is not Warren Buffett. Gary's a guy who sat on the SEC somehow, and he failed us, and I'm glad he's gone. Anyhow, let me know what you think about that in the comments section. I don't mean to be so harsh. I shouldn't be. Gary was just doing his best, and I'll try to be nice. And again, it's a good thing that he was the tying vote for the Bitcoin ETF, or we wouldn't have it. So good stuff for Gary. So we have that piece, and everything's looking relatively good. But we take a look at the market itself today, not so great, but here we are. And we've got Bitcoin down almost 2%. And of course, when Bitcoin goes down 2%, then the altcoins go down even harder usually. And it's and Nick here from Coin Bureau really nails it. He's like, hey guys, if you wanted to sell the news after the rate cuts, which would have been Wednesday or before then, you should have done it 2 days ago, not the Friday evening going into a low liquidity weekend. So if you are on the sidelines thinking to yourself, should I get it now or later? Yeah, might be a pretty good idea just to kind of wait for a little bit. However, there are good news on the horizon, as there usually is. Stephen Moran. This is the new pick for the Fed governor, and he spoke on CNBC just roughly about 20, 30 minutes ago or so. And I don't want to play the whole clip. It's 20 minutes long. What I should have done, I'll link in the description so you can check it out. But if you do a search for CNBC, Stephen Moran, you'll find it. But just this first minute, because if you didn't know, Stephen here, actually, let me get out of this one. I should say. Share this right one there. There we are. Stephen here, he was the lone dissenter who wanted to actually cut rates by 50 basis points. And of course, he was overruled by the other participants, the other governors. But listen to what he says here about why he thinks they should have cut rates as far as 50 basis points. Let's take a listen to this, about a minute and a half or so.
First of all, for a 50 basis point cut, when the rest of the committee voted on quarter point.
Yeah, of course. Look, you know, let me first state that I speak only for my own views and not for anybody else's whatsoever. But I think I've got a differentiated view on a number of counts. First of all, I don't see any material inflation from tariffs. I see no evidence that it's occurred. In my opinion, if you look at import-intensive core goods, they've inflated at no faster rates than overall core goods, which is not what you would expect to see if you thought tariffs were driving inflation higher. You'd think imports would be differentially inflating at a higher pace. The second thing I'd say is that there's no discernible trend difference between core goods inflation in the United States versus that in other countries. And again, if I thought that tariffs were driving any material inflation in the United States, I'd look for evidence the United States somehow stuck out.
But it's not just tariffs, right? We still have inflation that is above the Fed's target. So you can understand why most of them wouldn't be that excited about cutting further with that kind of scenario.
No, of course. And again, I have a differentiated view. In my opinion, the changes in border policy in recent years have been significant inflation drivers. And think about it this way. The supply of shelter, the supply of homes is relatively fixed in the short run. You can't just, pick houses off trees. They take a while to be built. And when you have big population shocks, it moves around the price of shelter. If you add millions of new immigrants into a country in a short period of time, it's going to drive shelter prices up. And then if you close that border, and then you have negative net migration. And there's been reports thus far that 1.5 million migrants have left the United States just in the first half of the year this year.
Okay, so that's a mouthful. But can you imagine this guy talking for the FOMC meeting instead of Jay Powell? Wow, that's going to be a very short speech. This guy talks very quickly, but a lot of things that he says does make a lot of sense. So let me know what you think about that in the comment section as far as what Stephen believes. You think that's that these tariffs are inflationary, disinflationary, or moderate? And where do you think things are going? And should we have cut by 50 basis points? I think would be the bigger question. So we have that piece. And then also, moving forward, he talked about how inflation really hasn't seen too much. And of course, the Fed is going to be data dependent. And of course, once we cut rates more, then that'll pretty much do really well for the crypto digital asset market, as well as traditional markets. But if you take a look, and I'm always talking about this Truflation, which they have direct API integrations and they have faster data and they look at a whole different sectors. Well, actually the same sectors that the Fed does, it's just that they have just faster data to look through. You can see that the US inflation index, now the Federal Reserve wants it around 2%. Right now they have it at 2.24. Now it used to be 1.9, and this is the Truflation US inflation. They have UK inflation, but there's this other one here that they added. I don't know when they add this one. But this is what the Federal Reserve looks at mostly, the PCE, the consumer index, or the core PCE. Core PCE would be what the Fed actually looks like. So I'm not for sure if this is core PCE or just the PCE itself. But you can see right here, they have it at 2.6%. Over here, as far as what the Fed has it, they have it at roughly PCE, core PCE year over year at 2.9%. So again, I think we could have gotten away with 50 basis points, but it all comes down to data. Hopefully at some point they get that correct, maybe in November, maybe in December. But if you take a look at the odds right now, it's 25 and 25. So let's hope they cut so we can have a nice fat Q4 and we'll go from there. So moving away from the macro into, unfortunately, bad news, my least favorite topic, exchanges. I want to bring this to everybody's attention because as the bull run comes in, you're going to be using these exchanges a little bit more. Or unless you want to use decentralized exchanges, that's fine too. Or if you want to use something like TANGEM wallet and swap out your crypto for stable coins, it's up to you. But I think a lot of us are going to be using the centralized exchanges because they are, unfortunately, a necessity. And it's like the old saying goes, treat an exchange like a gas a gas station bathroom. Go in, do your business, and get out as fast as possible. Try not to touch anything. So this is Coinbase. I just wanted to bring to everybody's attention because this is Kevin Durant, and he's played for multiple teams. He's a big star. He's won a couple of national champions or NBA championships. Great player, right? Has a huge following. Well, NBA star Kevin Durant invested in Bitcoin in 2016. That's great, but he was locked out of his Coinbase account until this week. Bitcoin was $650 then. Now it's 117K. It's up 108x. Hopefully he bought Bitcoin. And Brian Armstrong's like, we got it fixed. Account recovery complete. Now, I don't think that Kevin Durant just wildly just said, hey, I've been having this problem for 8 years. But Coinbase has some issues with it. And if you think that like it won't happen to you, it will. And there's a nice little Reddit post about just the problems that Coinbase has. But that's for every business. I'm not here to pile on. I'm just saying that if you use just one exchange, pick your exchange, I think it's going to lead to some problems. So what I would do before this Q4 gets us, which I see a lot of selling, I need you guys to think about signing up for multiple exchanges if you're going to use them. Also, if you're having any issues right now, I would definitely recommend you pull your crypto, your digital assets off the centralized exchanges. I have a ledger, I have multiple ledgers, I have multiple TANGEM devices. I'd like you to do that. You don't have to, but I'm just telling you, since I've been in crypto, I would have been a lot better off if I would have done that. Anyhow, there's links in the description for a TANGEM wallet. There's a link in the description for Kraken. And those are essentially the two big ones that I use. Now, also, if just talking about it off the cuff, take a look at this price. Is this a meme coin? Kind of looks like it, right? Over 5 days. Actually, it would be much, much less. Actually, over a day. This is Gemini's stock price. And I know that people, they talk about, just how well certain industries will do. Crypto is going to be this fantastic to the moon type of status for different projects. And of course, Gemini went public, gosh, what was it, about a week ago or so? And as of right now, Gemini's stock closed at 12.8% down at $24.53, falling below its IPO price of $28. So I know that in other sectors of the crypto sphere, you're going to get a lot of information and advice. But I think that we are much more mature now as far as the market, and you really have to pick your spots better than just throwing at everything. And that could even be like these IPOs, just because they're going public and they went to the SEC and they're all ready to go, doesn't mean that they're going to be great. So just keep that in mind, and that's it for tonight. So look, like today's video, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing. Everybody talk about it's time sensitive. Now let's do a little Q&A. I'll answer everybody's questions and we'll go from there. All right, CT guy says, Gemini sucks. They wouldn't even list ADA. Coinbase is the same way. I believe that Coinbase wouldn't list XRP for a long time. They wouldn't list Cardano. And for some reason, they don't list Tron either. And we talked about this. It's probably because they have a nice little deal with Circle in USDC, and they don't really have, they listed Tether. They have Tether there, but they don't have a deal with the company itself. And that's why Tron is probably not listed, because that is the biggest rail as far as with Tron. Anyhow, I could be wrong, but it's on its own main net. It's been around for quite some time. It's battle tested. I don't know why they wouldn't list it. That's kind of crazy. But other projects get listed pretty quickly. Who knows? Moonbags. Oh yeah, resisted. Indian police are storing forensic hashes on Cardano with Tribal Forensic Management System. Both resist. I saw that article. I thought it was great, but then it reminded me of, remember, I don't remember what it was, 2 or 3 years ago, there was a couple of African countries that said that they were going to use Cardano and they were going to put the education system on Cardano. I think it was documentation of either classes that people have taken or diplomas that they have earned. And everybody thought it was going to be like a great thing. And then, we could have it. Also, I believe that they were going to put land documentation on Cardano. What the heck happened to that? It seems like no one talks about that, and it's not even being, I don't even know what's being done right now. So with Indian police and storing forensic hashes, that's great, but let's see if it actually pans out. We'll find out and go from there. Bricks, thanks for the $10. Look, I appreciate the super stickers. I like it, but I will recommend everybody keep their money and put that into assets. I think it's going to be very harrowing experience coming up the next couple of years. I don't know what's going to happen in geopolitical wars and AI. I just need you guys to really start thinking about putting a lot of your money into some types of assets. I don't care what those are, but assets, when we start money printing, and even if we do, this big quantitative easing from the Fed, and we have a bunch of liquidity in the system, the people that have assets are the ones that are going to prevail. The ones that don't and save money, they're going to get wiped, and it's going to be tough. So, Bricks, thanks for the $10. That's great. Make sure you guys are doing the right things. Okay. You're the man. I appreciate you. Thank you, RC. Hey, RC had a good point. I remember when I was playing the Gary tape or the Gary video, and I said, yeah, I know, Gary just did his best, and he was doing his best for everybody. And RC says, doing his best for who? I just put that in there to be nice, honestly, RC. I think, quite honestly, there's two ways to think about Gary Gensler. Either he really was just trying to do his best, but failing miserably, and trying to protect everybody he possibly could, or he had his overlords, which would be like BlackRock and people like that, and they told him what to do. One of those two is true, or maybe it's somewhere in the middle. But yeah, he just did his best. He just failed miserably. Let's see. Rob, indulge me. What's the Pi cycle top indicator saying? That's a good question. I don't think we're close at all. Pi. How about if we go to this website I've heard about? That will be the 12 multiple. So I like Ben's website. It's very searchable. Makes things easy. All right. So, well, bad news. It's blank. Okay, there we go. Wow, we're not even close. So the Pi cycle top, it's when the 350-day moving average times 2 crosses over the 111-day moving average. And when it does that, we start to get a pretty good idea of when the tops are. This happened. This was actually created in 2019 and did a great job of retrospectively taking a look at it and going, yeah, it nailed 2013. It nailed 2017. 2021, did okay. It crossed over at a price of 59,999K, which is 60,000. But I mean, it only went to 67K. So if you sold at 59 or 60,000, that's pretty good, right? But of course, the red crosses over and then it crosses back. But we can see here that right now, as it stands, we're like a ways away from that happening. So this is why I'm not too big on it. Also, if you want to take a look at like a whole bunch of indicators together, just look at this coinglass.com, bull market peak signals. And we can see that the Pi cycle, even they have it listed here, Pi cycle top. Distance to hit, it's 60% away, which is pretty good. I mean, I think it's still far away. And the only one that's actually hit is the altcoin season index, which I got a lot of questions about this. And people were saying, hey, why, first of all, why can't I zoom in on this? I got a hack though. Just do this. Oh, this is why. So when you're in the Bitcoin zone, which is down here in this orangey, whatever color this is when Bitcoin is the strongest and it's outperforming altcoins by a wide margin. Now, when we get to the altcoin season index, that means that altcoins, the top 50, more than 75%, are outperforming Bitcoin over, I believe it's a 90-day period. Yeah, Jesus is long. So what this means is, okay, altcoins have slowly been outperforming Bitcoin, but when you're up here, you're kind of, it's not like you're too late. I mean, we can still go up like crazy, but I showed you, there was a video we did, it was called Throwing Sand in the Ocean. If you just search for digital asset news, sand in the ocean, it'll come up. And I showed you that, you know, once we're down here and everybody's, you know, thinking that Bitcoin's the greatest thing of all time, which pretty good. This is when you want to start to dollar cost average into alts, because at some point it's going to go to some sort of an alt season and you'll have nice gains. Now, can you get gains here? Of course you can. I still think we're going to have a nice little run in Q4, like we have every single post-halving year. But at this point, you know, if you were investing into, well, I don't know, BNB at 600, actually, let's just see. Oh, this is 2024. Well, we can see it. If you look at the historical index, you'll find it. But yeah, it's just the same thing over and over again. So if you're investing like BNB or Cardano at 30 cents, BNB at 600, Solana at 100 and whatever it was, $28, you're feeling pretty good right now. And I think that's how it should be. This is when the hard things happen. Actually, my best performing crypto right now is Aether, AETHIR, and that's all about AI performance and GPU optimization. But I've been holding on that for like a year and some change. So it's just one of those things where you just buy and hold. All right. Yeah. X-File says TANGEM wall potential vulnerability identified by Ledger. So the vulnerability was this. They took the card and the app itself and I'll pull it up. Let's see, TANGEM ability Ledger. Yeah, here we go. So a security flaw, allowing hackers to brute force the PIN code of TANGEM's cold wallet by cutting off their source of power. It's called a tearing attack. In order to perform the attack, Don John discovered that cutting a TANGEM card source of power before it acknowledges a password attempt stops it from registering a failed password. What this means is when you, first of all, the people that have that are these hackers, they can't just do it remotely. They have to physically have one of your cards. Then they have to be able to get into the TANGEM app, which means some type of password. And what that means is that they can cut the power to your computer or to your phone at the right moment, and they can brute force it, which means they can over and over again try to figure out what the actual password is and do that. So there's two things. First of all, you have to physically have the device. So if you get your card stolen, you probably want to move everything anyhow, right? Same thing with like your debit card. They can't just do this remotely from some place in like North Korea or something like that. So that's the first thing. And then second thing is, even if they steal your card, you have to probably have been targeted, because that's a pretty sophisticated thief who knows about that brute force attack, knows how to do it, knows how to cut off the power at the right time, and knows how to put in those passwords and run the program to access it. So for me, I'm looking at that, I'm like, well, you know, these things could happen. Also, you know, it'd be even easier to do, just wrench attack somebody, which apparently happens all the time now. So wrench attacks are, they find a public figure like myself, and they say, hey, I'm going to find this guy, and I'm going to beat the tar out of him, and then I'm going to make sure that he transfers all of his crypto to me. This happened in Chicago. This happened in places in Australia. It happened in Las Vegas in one of the big events of a crypto event that happened, I want to say like 6 months ago. So I think it'd be easier for them just to beat the tar out of you than going through all those hoops. And that could be a Ledger or whatever else. So anyhow, good luck with all that stuff. But it was an interesting nice little marketing piece for Ledger, in my opinion. Rob, I'm nervous about this run. Means we lose a friend until the bull runs over. Again, mixed feelings. Marty, don't worry about it. I'll be around. I just won't be on this channel. So when I start to sell, I'll be like, hey, everybody, guess what I'm selling? And this is why I'm selling. And I'm not saying you should sell, because my goals aren't your goals. And then off you go. Yeah, A1. It's an unrealistic vulnerability because it can't be done. The chip would stop working before it would fail. Oh, there you go. I didn't know that part. That's interesting. Anybody else loving these Seeker phones? Way better than the iPhone or Samsung. I haven't, I didn't order one again, but these are the Seeker phones from Solana. I've heard some pretty good reviews so far, so that'd be great. I've also had a couple of people who have bought the Seeker phone and then have gotten cell phone service through World Mobile. I'm wondering how that works out for them. That's pretty good. I have cell phone service through World Mobile on my phone, but it's an iPhone. Works great, matter of fact. What's your indicator that you come back to the bear market? This would have to be, because we have to understand, like, well, what is a bear market? How do we define that? What would that actually be? So I define it in the traditional terms. A bear market is a financial market experiencing prolonged price declines, generally of 20% or more. I'll play it by ear, maybe like 30%, who knows? Bear market usually occurs with widespread investor pessimism. That could happen. Large-scale liquidation of securities and other assets. That's definitely going to happen. Bear markets, if they experience a decline of 20% or more over a sustained period of time. So that's my definition. There's a little bit of a looseness there because that's the traditional way to look at it. But around that time, it's going to have to be extreme fear. We're going to have to be down probably like 30% or more. And then I'll probably come back and say, well, you know, we're down 30%. It's a pretty good time to start buying. Hello, bear market. Let's see. Buzz says, Rob, can you show the Bitcoin time frame chart per cycle that you showed us yesterday? Okay, but this is the last time. I think Ben's getting kind of ticked off of me showing everybody his stuff. But here we go. So if you guys like this type of data, please go sign up for Ben's website. And actually, a lot of his stuff on here is free. I don't know if you guys knew that. When you sign up, there's a free option. Use that, and then at least, you know, take a look at some of these good charts, and then use like the tools like the DCA strategies, which is fun to use. It's also fun to rub it in your friends and family spaces. Like, hey, remember when I told you to invest into Bitcoin? And then you guys did something goofy, like invest in something totally different or nothing. Here's what you could have earned. That's the fun part. I'm just kidding. It's really fun, actually. So what we were talking about was return on investments. We go here, ROI, and this is the ROI after the cycle bottom. It's nice, right? Nice and colorful. Yay. Here's what we're looking at. So there's 5 cycles. I look at a cycle as between the genesis of Bitcoin to 2013. But this is, we're talking about the Bitcoin market cycle bottom to the top return on investment. And Ben has it here as 2010 of July to 2011 of June. You're up 574%, okay? All right, that's the first cycle. Here's the second cycle. The second cycle was the bottom, which was November 18th, 2011, and it topped at December 2013, Q4, post-halving year, right? The halving before was 2012. And you're at 539x. It's not bad. And then we have this market cycle 3, which we came from 2015 to 2017 on December again, Q4, post-halving year. So we can see how things are elongating, right? So we have this one, and this one took us, how many days is this? 328 or somewhere around there. This one from the bottom to the top took 747 days. This one even more so. 1,078 days. So you're looking at it and go, okay, it's extending, extending. But then the last cycle in market cycle 4, which was from 2018, December 15th, to the tippy top, which was November 2021. Again, Q4 post-halving year, the 19x, not bad. But this one is just shorter than the last cycle. So the extended cycles made sense back then because we had here, 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 and you could extrapolate the last one in 21 to probably go into Q1 of 2022, but it didn't happen. So that's why people say, well, this one's definitely going to extend. I don't know that, and you don't know. It's just a good educated guess. I don't know. I'm just focused on indicators and when I'm going to sell. When I'm going to do the, what we call that now? The great altcoin handoff, where I take my bags, I take them off my back because they're so heavy, I lay them down for the next investor, the next younger, hipper, smarter version of ourselves who can pick up those bags and carry them to Valhalla. That's all I'm waiting for. All right. Hey, all right. Love my secret, not better than my iPhone. All right. Yeah. I watched Cyber Skrilla do the hour-long breakdown of it. He just does cold. Yeah, that was a good video. That was a live one. It's long. But Cyber Skrilla does good stuff, especially on cold storage devices. He knows he does. Good job. Rob, do you own any physical silver? Yes. And also physical gold? Yes. But remember, people say, well, I have to have this for the apocalypse. That's great. But when the apocalypse comes, if that is a thing, just make sure that you have a gun, because if not, you're just a very expensive locker for the mutants that will barge into your house and take everything. So just beware. Hey, Rob, best to rotate out of old narrative coins at a loss or too late now? You know what? I just never, well, I guess it depends on the coin. Like most of my holdings are in the top 30 right now, except for, like I said, Aether and a couple other ones. But for me, if it's dead, if you're like in a coin that's in like the 2000s, maybe you might want to look at that and say, this isn't coming back. So I don't know. But like some of them, like let's say Cardano, which is 67% away from its all-time high, they could still rally. You never know. It is a dino coin, that's for sure. But I would hold on to it myself. Denzo's still protecting his payments. Paymaster, Elizabeth Warren. I didn't want to say it. I'm glad somebody else said it. Thank you, Ephraim. Thank you also. Don't tell him. What did Trump say today? Besides the fact that Jerome Powell messed up and should have done at least 50 basis points. Am I still buying? Yeah, but very little. And actually, it's mostly stocks now. Tesla, Bitmine, Nvidia, the ones that I think will be around for a while. I don't know about Bitmine, but those types of things. And then I'm not buying Bitcoin right now, even though if it gets below 110 this weekend, I probably have to. You have to. And a little of Ethereum, but that's it. I mean, I bought so much stuff in the bear market, like we talked about constantly, that I'm just like, my bank account is anemic. I need to replenish it a little bit. Yeah. My question is why Bitcoin is stagnant while the stock market is ripping. Remember yesterday, the stock market was down, I want to say half a point, maybe 0.28, 0.46, somewhere around there. And then yesterday, Bitcoin was up massively. And then our altcoins were up even more so. So like I look at that, I'm like, uncorrelated. Today, a little more uncorrelated. I think it's just, people just say, you know what, it's a lot of profits. It's a lot of profits for some of these altcoins. I mean, look, BNB hit its all-time high yesterday, or at least around there. Ethereum's at its all-time or near its all-time high. Solana's doing great from its low of like $9 or $10 for the cycle. So people are going to take profits. It's just normal. And then as far as like what's going to happen this weekend, I think we're going to see even more of a slide. Although this was quite a big day for profit taking, I think. Yeah. Fuzzbear says the chart only confirms that the bear markets are becoming shorter. Clearly, I don't know. Because I mean, it's three. I mean, it depends on which I guess you would distinguish as a bear market. So some people would say, again, 20% or more, and the sentiment is extreme fear, but that's like a Tuesday for crypto, so it's hard to say. But as far as like time to accumulate, I would say that this cycle was a little bit different because Bitcoin ran up so fast. But you know what it wasn't different for? Definitely for the altcoins. If you were here for altcoins, and I think some of you, or most of you, are still waiting for this blow off top, I'm kind of in the same boat. So for altcoins, the bear market lasted a lot longer than what they thought. All right, but not for Bitcoin. Did really great. I don't know what that is. Crypto Cody, do you think most alts will break their previous all-time highs from early in the cycle? No, they don't. And especially the older, go take a look at all your old digital assets that you bought back in 2021 and take a look at their tokenomics and their emission schedule, because some certain cryptos that you got into in 2021, they're not going to hit that number because they may have launched in 2020 or 2021 and they didn't have their entire circulating supply out because there was a schedule of unlocks. And that was for at the TGE, the token generation event, and for all the people that invested early. They got their tokens and they dumped them on you. That's just how it goes. So right now, you just take a look at the tokenomics and you'll see like, oh, there was like, the max supply was 1 billion. When it came out in 2021, they only had 100 million out. And that's why the price went up so high. And then what happened over the last 3 years, the emissions, they have been unlocking those tokens. The early investors have gotten them. And then guess what? They've dumped and dumped and dumped. It's just the same thing with like money printing, essentially. They put a bunch of money into the economy. It goes out. First, there's this thing called the Cantillon effect, where it goes to the rich people first, the bankers, the fraudsters, the billionaires. They get the money. What do they do first? They buy assets like crazy, which drives up the price, which then goes to us plebs. And then we get screwed over, and they're like, "Hey, you like that house? Yeah, it's $1 million now, but when I got it, it was like 180,000." Because I mean, that's an extreme example, I get you, but it's the same thing with tokenomics. So as far as like all altcoins coming back, no, I don't think so. But I've been wrong before, so I'm just resigned to the fact that some are just going to suck. They're just not going to make it, and I'll just have to deal with that. And as long as the other ones do well, like the Bitcoins, the Ethereums, the Solana, the Aethers of the world, I'm okay. Hopefully, you didn't put everything into like Fartcoin. That's the big lesson. After a few months, do you really need a pool? I'm wondering for my own family. If you don't like the pool, you just get a green screen. That's what I do, and that's it. So yeah, no, but seriously, if you get a pool, it's a lot of chemicals and a lot of hassles. Then you gotta do it yourself, because your wife's not going to do it, even though she tells you that she's going to do it. She totally lied to you. You're going to be doing it the whole time, and then if you don't want to do it, then you got to pay someone to do it. And it's a big hassle. And if you want to make an indoor pool like we did, way better, way less chemicals, way easier to do. But it's also more expensive. So what I would do is I would buy like one of those inflatable pools, throw the kids in there, and be like, there you go. And then keep that money and put it into Bitcoin. That's what I should have done in the first place. But it was like, early 2000s. So what are you going to do? Why were you putting your profits when you sell? First of all, it's going to have to. Days, didn't we talk about this already? I know we did. I'll tell you again. So first things first, it's going to have to go to a couple of charities that I believe into. And that will be the first and foremost thing. I think it's important to give back. Second thing is, and this is a good question from somebody, they said, hey, instead of cashing out and putting it into cash and putting it in your bank and all these things, what if you just, do a swap within TANGEM and put them in a stable coins? And I'm like, yeah, I always forget about that. So we could do something like that. Put them in a stable coins. And then if you really wanted to be really risky, which isn't that risky, but it's probably still good, you could take some of those stable coins, a little bit, and put them into an exchange and get some yield. I know like Coinbase is giving like 11%. But again, I probably won't do it because of my Voyager and Celsius mishandlings. So no. And then what it'll be is there's really nothing I need to buy or nothing that I want or nothing that I have to absolutely have. I'm pretty lucky SOB, but I would like to have a lot of dry powder. And we talked about this last time. I need to sell because during this bear market and everything was sliding down and we were like, hey, there's a big dip. You got to buy the dip. You got to buy the dip. And it was like, with what money? I have put everything into this. And that's it. I would have liked to have gone heavier during the bear market because I know now that's where all the money is made. And that is just how it goes. And I even learned my lesson in the stock market because I thought I was a genius and I bought a bunch of stocks in 2021. And then when I look back at my Robinhood account in like 2024, I'm like, these are the same prices. Yeah, because I didn't dollar cost average. I didn't dump a bunch of money into those stocks when everything was low. So that's the big thing. And then if there's always a good opportunity here in Puerto Rico for housing. Housing, there are over 300,000 zombie houses, as they're called. And the banks here are they're something else. And what people usually do is they need hard money lenders to fix up those houses, and not to take a house for like 100,000 and jack up the price to 400,000, but just to get in there, fix the house so a family can move in because the housing shortage here is real. And then you make a little money, and then you can brighten up a family's day. So something like that would be another big play to do. And then after that, just kind of keeping the silence. Okay, that was a long answer. I think Bitcoin, Cash, and Litecoin will shock people in the next few years. Probably so. Post-apocalypse, agree on farm ownership necessity. There you go. Also, better have a community to lean on. Also true. And skill sets, also true. And grow food and be adaptable to the ways of our grandparents lived. Yes, somebody was watching Mad Max. Let's see. Newton's like Gary. How do you buy stocks? I just buy them through Robinhood. I'm lazy. Anemic. Made it to the end of my drive. Thanks for entertaining me. That's all I'm good for. Just entertainment. There's no financial advice whatsoever in this one. Buy your Bitcoin, hold in cold wallets. You have 5 years. And then lastly, this is a good question from Dale. What's an on-ramp and off-ramp? This is a good one. So, for like everything, you can go to a store and just pretty much buy it. If you're like, what I need today? Butter and cheese and steak, stuff like that. Someone's going to take these dollar bills and I'm going to go to the store, I'm going to buy them. And that's how you do it. With Bitcoin, you can't just do that. You can't just walk down. Well, I guess you can. You can walk down and go to like a kiosk if you have one in your city. I don't. But you need like an on-ramp and an off-ramp for your dollars to be exchanged from fiat. Some people call it dirty. I just call it cash. And you want to change that into Bitcoin. So that is your on-ramp into Bitcoin. Then at some point, maybe you sell it, maybe you don't. Let's just take Ethereum for this example. So, if there's a Bitcoin maximalist out there, I don't want you to blow your head off or go crazy. Let's just take Ethereum. And then you bought Ethereum, that's your on-ramp. Your off-ramp, you need to take Ethereum and go, hey, I'd like to get a new car or a kidney or whatever you need. And you take that money and you say, okay, well, here's my Ethereum, give me money. And then that'd be the off-ramp, which would be the centralized exchange, which would be Coinbase. Coinbase, Binance US, not Gemini, Kraken, Crypto.com, that type of thing. So that would be what it is. All that makes sense. And everybody, that's it. It's about 45 minutes. I gotta get out of here. So that is it for today. Thanks so much for hanging with me for 45 minutes. I appreciate it. It's always fun. If you like today's video, thumbs up, subscribe, all that great stuff. Again, like we talked about and Dale was asking, the on and off ramps, make sure you sign up for multiple ones so you don't get screwed over like, hey, why is Coinbase down yet again? Maybe I should have gotten more than one. Sign up for multiple exchanges, and for Pete's sake, take the crypto off the exchanges and don't be lazy. Use a TANGEM, use a Ledger or Tracer or whatever you got. If you don't know how to do that, there's a great website. It's free. It's 100% free. It's always free. It's called Dan Teaches Crypto. There's a link in the description. That's my website. And I show you exactly how to do that step by step in a video format. So that's it for today. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate you. And I'll see you in the next one. Adios.